Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of Anime Brain Freeze. We are your infinite hosts.
I am John.
And I'm CC, and when there's just too much cool anime to watch, we've got you covered. Today we have a bunch of crazy battles on the menu. First, I will return to the fantastical isekai world of At That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime to check out what that show's many lovable characters are up to in its second season. Spoilers, shit's gonna get fucking dark. And after that, we will jump on our skateboards and join the colorful gang from Sk8 the Infinity to duke it out with a skating torero vampire. You've heard right, folks. Things are only gonna go downhill from here, literally. So wear some protection and definitely don't pause the pod. We'll be right back.
Get the picture. They try to hit you. They try to kick you down and out.
So yeah, that time I got Reincarnated as a Slime is back in its second season. I reviewed the first season quite a while ago. I think the episode name was Slimy Date in Neverland or something like that. I never can remember the numbers, but I can remember the title. So there you go. But yeah,
that's still a skill to remember that, because I didn't remember.
Yeah, well, then that's something, I guess. So yeah, what to talk about in the second season? There's actually a lot happening, kinda. So just to catch people up who haven't actually checked out the review or haven't watched the show, then why are you listening to this review actually? But anyway, so typical isekai setup: normal dude gets killed in the real world, gets reincarnated in a fantasy world, but plot twist: he doesn't reincarnate it as a normal, overpowered human hero. He gets reincarnated as a slime, basically, from Dragon Quest. But some slime with the skill to absorb a lot of things, and the first thing he does, or one of the first things he does, is make friends with an immortal dragon that is trapped in the cave that he's in, and basically consume the dragon and the barrier that he's trapped in, and becomes super strong and super powerful, and gets even more OP from that moment on. And it goes on and on and on with that, and he makes friends with people in the goblin village and then becomes their leader, and a bunch of monsters join him. He basically builds his own nation, tries to, making deals with humans and monsters alike, and create like this utopia where monsters, yes, again, of all kind, like lizard people, goblins, orcs, oni, like a bunch of different monster species that usually are at war with each other, can live together and have a safe haven and everything, and build a society together. So he has come pretty far in that regard. Like, he has created, like I said, his own nation called Tempest. That's basically most of what happens in season 1, what Rimuru, our main character, does. He also makes friends with a girl that turns out to be someone like him someone like him who is from our world, different time period though, the Second World War-ish, I think. And she has been summoned by one of the demon lords from this fantastical world to serve him, and then kind of emancipated herself of that, but also was imbued with a spirit that slowly kind of ate away at her. And yeah, this is one of the sadder moments in the first season. Oh, again, second season, so continued season review means full spoilers for Slime Time Season 1 and Season 2, so be aware of that, people. So yeah, 3, 2, 1, spoilers, go. She dies, Shizu, the character in the first season, like very sad scene, and very well done. And then Rimuru basically consumes her body, and takes on kind of a mix of her form and different hair and everything, but kind of has her features and everything, but it's not a girl, it's not a boy, it's kind of genderless, but now has a human form. It was very well done. It was a surprisingly emotional scene, and her backstory and everything. And coming with that is a promise, because Shizu in her later years became a teacher of many students, and Rimuru takes over her most recent class and promises to help these kids grow their magical powers and everything. I think they're all otherworldlers from our world, and he wants to help them and protect them and everything, and find a way for not them being consumed by their magical powers and stuff like that. And I think he actually achieves that with the help of an ancient spirit and stuff like that. That happens at the very end of season 1. Basically, that's it. That's where we are. At the beginning of this, he's kind of still teaching the class, though that doesn't really take up much time. He's already on his way out. It's the last few days of the semester, so to speak. And he is willing to return to his city full time and do some stuff. Yeah, mainly, which was a surprisingly interesting thing about this show, which I really appreciated because it's really clever about that. That is diplomacy. Diplomacy is still a heavy focus in this show. Rimuru needs to deal with a bunch of different nations as a leader of one, now that he is. And he's quite good at it. Like, one of his most clever plays at the end of season 2 was actually letting a bunch of human adventurers take credit for defeating the Orc Lord. There are a bunch of battles in season 1, mostly caused by one of the demon lords of the fantasy world, whatever they're in, that still is basically trying to pull the strings in the background. Clayman is his name. This is basically the big bad in the first season and in the second, who still hasn't really taken center stage yet, but is, like I said, pulling the strings in the background. Yeah, and that's basically, Clayman sent basically an Orc Lord, or his minions did, and Rimuru defeated that. Also, that guy kind of joined his ranks then, and so on. But Rimuru didn't take credit for it. He let a few human adventurers he came across earlier take credit for it, so that he and his nation wouldn't be considered too powerful and thus a threat, because, suddenly there's a new nation and it's filled to the brim with monsters and they're super strong, so that might cause some concern with the other nations and stuff like that. So Rimuru was like, well, can't seem too powerful and too much of a threat, so I'm just gonna let Yom and his gang take the credit for defeating a super powerful creature like the Orc Lord. And that's pretty shrewd, and he does a bunch of more of that in season 2, which I really liked. At the beginning of the second season, there are some envoys. There's like this delegation sent from the Animal Kingdom. There's also, I think, under the control of a beast lord, which I forgot his name. But yeah, and they are coming to Tempest to check out what they are all about, what Rimuru is all about, if he's actually a valuable trade partner, if he's as strong as everyone says he is, and so on. So they meet his delegation, they immediately start trouble, there's a bit of fighting here and there, but then people start understanding each other and so on, and everything is honky-dory. And the animal people are interested in the apple brandy produced by Rimuru's people. The resources for that are limited. So, at least in Rimuru's country. So the beast people quickly suggest to provide the necessary ingredients in exchange for getting some of the booze in the future. So we give you the ingredients, you give us some of the booze. And again, you have trade, you have diplomacy at work, and it's nice how well that is established, and how it's like, hey, we need to build trade routes and everything, and each nation can profit from each other. You have something we want, and we have something you need to make that. So let's work together. Let's figure this out. And the show was very focused on that in the first season, when Rimuru acquires some artisans from the dwarf kingdom, stuff like that, and they start working in the town and creating armor and buildings and jewelry and stuff like that. And in exchange, some of the stuff that his town then produces goes to the Dwarf Kingdom and so on. So all of this interplay between the different nations and how they work together and both prosper through it is pretty nice. I like how they make it look easy. Of course, in real life it never is, but in this world it seemed like it was, and I liked it. And
diplomacy? Cooperation? Who does that in RL?
And who does that usually in anime land and in anime fighting land? So it's nice to see a show actually focusing on that. Of course, there's also a lot of fighting and action and everything. There's a lot in this season, especially. But it's nice to see something else in this, and that also gives you a lot of neat character moments. Just with a lot of these nations like coming together and exchanging thoughts and ideas and stuff like that, which I liked. And this extends to the animal people learning about Tempestian artisanship, and the Tempest people learning about the animal kingdom's supreme agriculture. Like, again, evolving through relationship and communication, you love to see it. That immediately sparked a question in me, though, when I saw a bunch of these good field moments where just, the two nations started building relationships and working together. I'm interested to see what Rimuru intends to do whenever a country he has an allegiance with does, something shitty. Because that happens in real world, and then you have to take a stance. And I wonder if they will tackle stuff like that in the show. There's some other neat moments, like Rimuru brings the orcs reconstructing the road destroyed in the last battle from season 1, some barrels of beer. It's like there's a bunch of moments where you see that Rimuru is a benevolent leader, he can be stern, but he's very much like, hey, he's even nice to the smallest worker or whatever you want to say it. He's a really good dude, and it's fun. After the stuff with the beast people, Rimuru is off to the Dwarf Kingdom again, talks to their king, Gazelle, who is also impressed by the booze. Not so much by Rimuru's speech before the people of both nations, because he deems it too short, too humble, and too reliant on the sympathy of others. Gazelle is more like a confident, go-get-it guy, as you would expect from a Dwarf King, I assume. So he gives him some recommendations, gives him some advice. He's like, hey, maybe you want to be a bit more confident and not be as humble, because you're a leader now. You have to stand for something. You have to be a symbol. And it's also really interesting to see how like different ideas about leadership clash in this show. And another example of Rimuru being a quite skillful tactician, which is weird considering he was just a programmer, I think, in real world, kinda. The way they explain it, like he's so good at this, is because he was taking care of a lot of people who worked under him and looked that all of them were like having a good time and stuff like that. He was a manager or a middle manager or something, but he was really good at his job. So apparently that's enough to lead a nation.
Manager and multitasker.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, it works. So, but yeah, he while he's in the Dwarf Kingdom, he gives some free liquor to the owner of the Hostess Club, which he has frequented every time he was there. So she can sneakily find out how much customers would pay for a glass of it. He is crafty, that slime. Also, that doesn't help him when his two, I don't want to call them servants, or let's say assistants, Shuna and Shion, who are like these Oni girls. One of them is kind of his secretary. The other one is medicine woman, I guess. But yeah, they find out he and the Goblin boys went to a hostess club, and yeah, he has to suffer Shion's cooking as a punishment for a week, which is a weird running gag that her cooking is really shitty and kills people. But Shion is really highlighted at the beginning of the show and in several scenes, and you really don't think much of it. But it becomes really apparent in the later parts of the show why they did that. I mean, she's a prominent character in the first season as well, but it's like really, they really focus on that in the first half of the second season. Like, okay, that's nice. That's nice that she gets so much screen time, but why? There are a bunch of other characters, and well, we'll get to that. I also love that Rimuru has like this basically AI construct in his head that he calls the Great Sage, that is responsible for reviving him and talks like a computer, and it's like, this skill activated, you evolved into blah blah blah, and he can ask that thing any question. They have like these conversations, like he's actually talking to a person or something like that, which is really funny occasionally. And then in this case, he yells at this fantasy AI in his head because it identifies alcohol as a poison and immediately nullifies it. Because he's so OP that poison gets immediately nullified in his body, so he can't get drunk, and that really sucks for him. He's super angry about it. It's a clever joke. I like that.
Imagine that, though. You could drink as much as you want and not get crunk. I get all.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, I mean, part of the thing why people drink alcohol, I guess, is to get drunk. So yeah. It's not always the taste. A lot of alcohol tastes really shitty, in my opinion. So I don't know. That might defeat the purpose, I guess.
Yeah, well, I guess it depends on who you ask.
Oh, another thing that made me laugh, but also kind of like raise an eyebrow. Rimuru brought a bunch of... No, I think an acquaintance of his got hold of manga, or Rimuru was able to reproduce a bunch of manga from his body. I'm not sure it went. That he did that in season 1, because one of the people he meets from his world that have been summoned to this one was a giant manga fan, and to get on his good side, he just gives him a bunch of manga from series that are now finished that he was in the middle of reading when he was summoned to the fantasy world, and he's so happy, just, oh my god, I can finally finish reading Bleach, and and you know, the class he's teaching, they're basically like elementary schoolers, and then he gives them a bunch of manga to read, and one of them is Parasite, and I'm like, Rimuru, they are way too young for that. You're a bad teacher. Don't let them read that fucking horror manga. What the fuck? And but yeah, it made me laugh. But yeah, another important character we meet in the second season is Yulan, who is this woman who is a spy for Clayman, the demon lord, who's like the big bad. And she tries to basically infiltrate Tempest and then enact the plan at a certain point. And for that, she becomes basically a team of Yom and his gang, the adventurers who took the credit for defeating the Orc Lord. You immediately know what they are trying to do with her. She's very focused on her mission and so on, but then she runs into Yom and in his new Beast Nation buddy Grucius, and they kind of fight over her, and you see, okay, she's gonna fall in love with Yom, and Yom is gonna fall in love with her. That's what's gonna happen. And of course, that's what happened. She's like immediately getting swept up in the jolliness of Tempest, even though she was fixated on doing this one thing. So you can see she's probably gonna come around. And yeah, that's all like the setup, basically. All of this is kind of set up for what's happening next, which takes up the most part of the story of season 2. All of that is kind of like, there's a bit of foreshadowing here and there, and there's some chess pieces moved into different places. And the first big thing of what you can guess what will happen, the first big foreshadowing of that is multiple people warn Rimuru that by growing Tempest's wealth and power, his city will draw the interest and even the ire of many nations. And this is exactly what happens. With Tempest becoming a new, successful and growing center of trade, the human nation of Falmouth loses merchants and thus money. So they decide to make use of their church and declare a holy war on Tempest. Because that's full of despicable monsters, and the church can't have that. So, as a justification, there's like, this nation is against God's will, so we're just gonna attack it and kill everybody. Of course, religion is just an excuse. It's all about the money and personal gain. Just like in real life, whenever someone invokes the power of the church or religion, let's be honest. And yeah, so that's basically what then happens. And Falmouth has a gang of other worldless as well, so people who came from our world, just like Rimuru and Shizu and the kids, and they intend to use their power as an advanced invasion party. 2 of them are in it for the action, but one of them sees the war as an opportunity to eventually kill their masters and gain freedom, so they're also like already these conniving, backstabbing assholes, like immediately unsympathetic pieces of shit. They go to Tempest. The girl uses her power Bewilder to trick people into believing and doing everything she says. So the first thing she tries to do is trying to make the people in the town believe that one of the goblins assaulted her sexually, which doesn't sit right with me and is venturing a bit too much into Shield Heroes territory. But thankfully, one of the other goblin boys, who is basically kind of one of the main characters or main side characters, Gopta, who has been heavily featured since the first season and is great. He's a fantastic character. He's really fun. Completely diffuses the situation very easily and tastefully. So that's really cool. But that's not enough. Just when the otherworldless do their stuff in the city, on the other part of the town, Mulan basically does what she was sent here to do. She kind of wants to do, she doesn't really want to do Clayman's bidding, but she's kind of, I think her life is kind of chained to him or something. I don't remember quite what it was. And also she wants to protect Yom and the city from his wrath. So she needs to execute their plan. But again, she doesn't consider that is actually the thing that might actually kill everyone. So it's kind of like a classic tragedy. And yeah, when a fight between the Otherworldless and the Guardians of Tempest breaks out, Mulan unleashes her terrifyingly beautiful song, which is also her magic, and cuts Tempest off from all magic. So the people still in Tempest, so Gopta, Shinon, everyone who is still in the city protecting it, while Rimuru is off teaching the kids, they can communicate with the outside and warn Rimuru about what is happening. And at the same time, the soldiers of Falmouth create a barrier that stops everyone from escaping the city, which of course is a recipe for disaster. And this is just like all of that happening at the same time. And you first the other ones just appear and they're like, oh shit, here we go. And then Mulan does her barrier and you're like, oh no, fuck no. And then the army does the other barrier and oh fucking shit, fuck. And you know that something bad is gonna happen. But it doesn't stop there. At the same time, Hinata a former student of Shizu, decides to attack Rimuru because he has the features of Shizu. She thinks he killed her and took over her body, which is kind of true, but again, Shizu just died because, Ifrit, the power that she was imbued with, just consumed her, basically. And yeah, she decides to attack Rimuru, and of course, because Rimuru is overpowered as fuck, they now have to find ways to take away his powers, which Hinata does by erecting a barrier around him that disables most of his magic abilities, so he has a really hard time against her. Also, someone who knows that Rimuru is from another world has fed Hinata lies about what happened to Shizu to egg her on. You can guess who that is, Clayman or one of his minions. This is where the fighting begins and takes really center stage again. And the fights in this show look great as ever. There's one small bit of choreography I really like that happens during the fight between Shion and one of the three asshole Outworlders and Otherworlders. And I think I sent you a clip of that where he just starts laying into her with this barrage of punches, and she manages to withstand them. But all the shockwaves from the hits damage the buildings around them. It looks really savage. Where she's just punching in her, it doesn't really look like she's taking much damage, but all the houses around her just crumble to dust. And it's really well done and really well animated. And speaking of savage, I was not expecting for the situation in Tempest to get that grim that fast. Like, things look really bad for everyone, and Rimuru is busy with his own shit. So someone planned this out really well. Again, probably Clayman. I think they're not that clear about it, but it's a pretty safe bet. And yeah, then Rimuru manages to trick Hinata with a doppelganger and escape, only to find Tempest on fire and a bunch of goblins killed. And now he has to face that this is partially his fault. Because at the beginning, when he created Tempest, he set up 3 rules. Don't fight amongst yourself, don't belittle other races, and don't attack humans. So, the characters in the town were obeying Orimu's rule and trying to not kill humans. If they would have, fought without any reservations or anything, they could have maybe saved themselves when the army attacked. That begs the question. These rules are nice and all, but what do when the humans are the attackers? That was really interesting. Seeing like, okay, what are you going to do about this? You had this clear thing where it's like, hey, monsters attack people in this fantasy world, so I'm going to create a nation that is seen peaceful to everyone, and no monster will attack a human from my town. But what if the humans are the attackers and the asshole? What are you going to do? So, very interesting that the show actually tackles that. And in all of that turmoil that we see in the city, there are still there's some nice scenes like the lizard man helping the goblin kids to escape, which is showing how far the understanding between different monster races has come under Rimuru's rule. I like that as well. There's a bunch of that shown where all the different monsters working together and stuff like that. And yeah, Slime Time is not pulling any punches by killing what I assume is one of the fan favorites, Shion. And this is why I said that's why she was featured so heavily in the first season, in the first half of the season. Yeah, so this is a big bummer. And John, I've also linked you that scene where Rimuru actually discovers that happened. That was executed rather well. I mean, you have no context because you don't know the characters, but I think that scene was staged pretty well. I think with the scene where Rimuru just loses his temper for a short while and you just see his power evaporating from him because he's so angry, I think they pulled that off rather well.
Yeah, that kind of gives you an idea that he is like burning with hatred.
Mm-hmm. And guilt, because he knows he's partially responsible for that, because he explicitly instructed his people not to kill humans. Right. So he holds himself responsible for it. And he kind of is, but, you know, he did it with good intentions. He didn't think it through, though. So,
yeah, I mean, it strikes, not having watched show just seems like, the sort of situation that would be pretty difficult to avoid.
Yes, exactly. He maybe hoped for it, but maybe was a bit too naive in that regard. And this is the first time he's doing the ruler of a kingdom thing. So, I mean, I'm willing to cut him some slack there. He's an idealist. I mean, the whole idea about Tempest is pure idealism. It's supposed to be a utopia, right? Where every monster race works together, all are happy, and, you know, there's trade flourishing and everything, and diplomacy, and all the nations working together. So this thing is an ideal, and he wants everyone to be happy. The problem is when idealism clashes with realism and with reality, and then shit like this happens. So, yeah, but not all hope is lost. There's an adventurer called Erin, and she tells Rimuru about a way to revive Shion and everyone else. But for that, he himself has to become a demon lord, which is basically what the demon lord he made friends with at the end of the first season. Milim was this small girl, very fun. That's what she did, but Rimuru doesn't know that old fairy tale Erin tells him about is actually Milim's origin story. He can't quite put that together yet, but we see her shape and everything, and that's her. That's what she actually did. Erin tells him like that. There was this one girl who had a pet dragon and decided to become Demon Lord because stuff, and because that dragon was killed and stuff like that. So that was really funny that we now know more, and he is probably going to get filled in on that later. So to achieve becoming a Demon Lord, Rimuru has to collect a bunch of souls. So, as a good, benevolent leader would, Rimuru plans to wipe out the entire human force from Falmouth and their king. Yeah, he is angry, and he intends to put Yom, his adventurer friend, on the throne afterwards, so he can build a relationship with Falmouth. So basically a puppet king in a way. I couldn't help but feel it was a very American approach, maybe.
Oh boy.
I don't know. But yeah, it was very interesting to be like, hey, okay, these fuckers attacked us without giving us a head notice or anything, and without reason, and just because they thought they could. So, just gonna fucking kill everyone of their fucking force, and then just put my guy on the throne.
I mean, an eye for an eye?
I guess, yes. I mean, that's also how you can solve it. So, but yeah, I like that the show is somewhat realistic about the whole situation, in the sense of, yeah, diplomacy first, but that will only get you so far. Some people just don't care and want to end or own you, especially if they're a bunch of racists and opportunists. So Rimuru wants this to be a display of power of his nation. Slaughter everyone in their army and then make friendly trade relationships afterwards, if the country wants to. He's not like, okay, I'm going to take over Falmouth now. He's like, no, I'm just going to kill the people who actually attacked us, and then, leave the people in peace be, and have like a nice human ruler put off the throne, because everyone already likes Yom, because he's like this famous adventurer now and stuff like that, and I'm friends with him, so we can have trade relationships. That Yom is kind of considering himself his underling should maybe play into that, because de facto that would make Rimuru kind of the leader of Falmouth as well. But, like I said, he is clever, so that's kind of part of the plan here. But yeah, the message would be clear, like he's sending. We want to get along, so don't fuck with us, and especially don't kill my people, or your nation will be ground into the fucking dust. Which is a sentiment I can respect, because he was being completely going the pacifist route, or at least in the sense that he was not showing any aggression towards that other nation. So, I can see why. I mean, you could still be like, hey, okay, I'm just gonna kill your king, and then see you run around like headless and panic and stuff like that. But he's like, no, I'm just gonna, you have it coming. So
I'm reminded of a friend of ours sentiment. Welcome to a video game tangent, everybody. Where when Metal Gear Solid 5 was announced, and it was shown that the mother base from Peace Walker was completely leveled and destroyed, that the pacifist run was over.
Mm-hmm.
You took away what was ours, and that was nice and peaceful. Now you're going to pay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And thus began Outer Heaven, and
I mean, I've not played those games. I've not played Peace Walker. I've played at Ground Zero, but I've not played Phantom Pain. So I don't know about that part of the story, but really, But it's interesting, when media deals with that kind of subject matter, video games and anime and stuff like that. And again, it's a bit... I'm not comfortable really with the part of the political subtext where Rimuru kind of puts like a puppet king on the throne, really, and then that is okay. He should maybe let, the people of the country choose themselves or stuff like that. Make this republic or something, a democracy. But I can see why he's doing this. It's just like, hey, this is the okay thing to do. I'm like, nah, I don't know about that. I'm not too sure about that. But it's fine in the context of this show, I guess. But yeah, Rimuru usually is like this guy shown that is very nice, friendly, benevolent. And then one of the episodes where shortly before they have they are gonna attack the human army, ends with Rimuru hovering over the camp of Falmouth and saying to himself, "You killed my friends, so you're all food for me now," which is really scary.
Oh no.
We had a bunch of shows in the past seasons, shows and games, I guess, in the past season, that are like about this break the circle of violence and revenge. Like Attack on Titan is promoting that message. The Last of Us 2 is promoting this message. Rimuru doesn't give a shit about break the circle of violence and revenge. He does not care. Like you said, he's the eye for an eye guy. So, that's what happens. And the thing they need to do, Rimuru and his companions, they need to destroy these devices which create the barrier that weakens them, that weakens their magic powers and everything, while at the same time making sure that still a barrier is created that prevents the souls of the killed townspeople from escaping, which needs to be timed pretty well. So that's where the tension comes in. So Rimuru's lieutenants start annihilating the human army like only monsters can. It's violent, it's bloody, it's gruesome, and incredibly satisfying to watch. Hakuro, who's this old Oni dude, and Gelt, who's the former Orc Lord, easily dispatch of the Otherworldless, even though one of them escapes after killing his own teammate to gain a new power, Charming, only to end up as a new shell for his masters. All of the people in Falmouth are backstabbing assholes.
Jeez.
But all this stuff in the latter half or last third of the season it's incredibly dark. Like most, aside from the Shion stuff, I guess, and some of the Orc Lord stuff, most of the stuff in Slime Time was pretty light and fun and colorful and a lot of jokes and diplomacy and people meeting each other and, making relationships, friends and hanging out together, drinking stuff and talking to each other. And then occasionally, and especially in the second season, shit gets really dark and really bloody and violent. Holy shit, there's a lot of blood in this part of the show. And again, it shows that Rimuru might put diplomacy first, but don't fuck with him or his people, or you draw the short end of the stick eventually. Some of this feels so dark it would have fit into a season of Overlord. It's crazy. I'm not sure that Rimuru will go exactly there, that he will, even though he became a demon lord now, that he will become this fucking cold-hearted asshole monster that the main character of Overlord becomes. But still, it worries you. Like certain scenes, like I said, the scene where he hovers over the campus, like, you're all food to me. He feels so detached there, and so like he has no emotion whatsoever. Just like he's just only the intent to kill is on his face, and it's like, please don't fucking fall into the abyss, Rimuru. You're such a charming, nice guy. But yeah, there's this incredibly awesome fight between Hakuro and one of the Otherworldless that I also linked to you, and where he basically he decapitates the guy and stops time or moves so fast that time moves so slowly for the other guy that him dying takes an eternity for him or something like that, which is kind of what happened to the bad guy in JoJo's 5. But it's a really cool scene. It's just like you see this sword of Hakuro slowly moving to that guy's head and then starting to cut into there and he just can't move. And then you just see his view shifting because his head gets turned upside down. And then Hakuro just grabs him by the hair and he's like, yeah, fuck you, basically. So I don't have the exact quote. It's pretty badass. I'm gonna put that clip in the show notes so people can watch it. I really liked it. I think it was an amazing scene. Also really well animated. Of course, wouldn't call it comfort food, but it's like, hey, these assholes kill some of your favorite characters, so it's nice to see them being completely annihilated by our main characters, like just without any real resistance whatsoever. Like they never had a chance if they didn't erect the barrier with the reduced magic, and if Rimuru's rule set wasn't set in place where his people were not supposed to attack humans, they wouldn't have a chance in the first place. But now that's all gone, and now they will die. And yeah, all this book ends by Rimuru unleashing a fucking laser show that has his inner Sage AI coldly counting the ever-increasing amounts of dead soldiers while he calmly watches from above. It's eerie. It's like, this inner computer voice is like, 1004, 1005, 1200. It's like just people dying left and right, and he's just raining down lasers from the heavens, and it's creepy stuff. It's really like, holy shit, he's such a powerhouse, and just don't mess with the guy. Just don't fucking mess with the guy. Also, the soundtrack in this episode is absolute kick-ass. It's great. The soundtrack in the show in general is really good, but that moment is really great. And Rimuru is so merciless that he actually acquires a unique skill by that name that instantly kills anyone who has lost the will to fight. So anyone who is on the battlefield stands against him and then wants to give up just dies on the spot. It's ridiculous, this show with its skill set and everything. I mean, there are overpowered protagonists, and then there's stuff like that. And yeah, he becomes a demon lord and gains a lot of new powers, as if he wasn't already OP enough. Like there's basically, worry about it, though. It's like 5 minutes of just the AI rattling off fucking new skills that he gets. Just like you're finishing a boss fight in Final Fantasy VII and you see all your materia fucking evolve and shit like that. It's basically the same thing. You acquired that skill. You want to trade that skill for that skill? You don't have enough XP for that skill. I'm like, what are you doing, show? We don't need this information. It's not like he's gonna use like 10% of these skills anyway. But it's funny. And with the Demon Lord power, he gets new servants, like a bunch of demons, and one of them who recognizes him becomes really scared of. So I wonder what his deal is, and if we will get his background story. He names him Diablo because it means demon, and it's also the name of a supercar he likes, so he sees no downside.
I mean, I guess...
I love that. And Diablo really likes that name, and he's really happy because he just recognizes strength and immediately recognizes that Rimuru is the strongest creature he has ever seen. And he's like, oh, this is gonna be fun. I'm gonna serve that guy. And he really gets a kick out of it. And then he's also kind of tsundere about it, where it's like when Rimuru puts his attention to Ranga, his dog, for a while, he gets like kind of upset. It's like, oh man, I want Master's attention too. It's super weird to see like this demon guy getting kind of man, but I want to be his favorite pet. And yeah, it's kind of fun. And the last two things that happen in this season is Milim, the demon lord friend of Rimuru, declares war on the beast demon lord. Carrion was his name. That's what I wasn't able to remember earlier. For some reason, she declares war on Carrion and invests him in battle. I guess we get filled in on why she's actually doing that in the next season. And Rimuru finally gets to make good on his promise and free his dragon friend from the very first episode of the first season, who was trapped in the barrier that a hero erected around him, and he consumed, Rimuru consumed him in his barrier, and then basically while he kept Valdora, that was the name, Valdora Tempest, that's where he got the Tempest name from. Rimuru became Rimuru Tempest, and that's why he named the town that. But yeah, he was basically consuming Valdora and the barrier, and while Valdora was inside his body, the inside of Rimuru's body works is really strange. It's like a different dimension or stuff like that is infinite or shit like that. But yeah, inside that dimension, he was working at deconstructing the barrier, and he finally achieves that goal at the end of this second season. And Veldora gets freed and also gets a human form as well. And yeah, it's happy times again. And of course, Shion gets revived. Everyone of the people gets revived with the souls from the dead soldiers, like 30,000 or something, however many people he fucking killed with his laser show. That's the stage set for season 3, I guess. I mean, there are a lot of dangling threads left hanging, right? There's, main threat is still Clayman, who has been working against Rimuru from the beginning, even if he didn't know it or wasn't aware of it until Mueller filled him in. Thankfully, that also ends on a good note. Rimuru forgives Mueller for being part in the attack on his city, and she and Yom get together and everything. So that's a nice bookend to that story. And at the end of the show, thankfully, after all that dark shit, we're back into happy land. And there's a lot of good vibes and everything. So I was really happy about that because I needed that after all this dark shit and this depressing stuff. So yeah, again, Clayman needs to be defeated, though I assume that's going to be pretty much at the end. And there's this other demon lord that is the one who summoned Shizu and imbued her with Ifrit and basically, in that sense, killed her eventually and stuff like that. And Rimuru is on the search for him and wants to tell him, yeah, basically, fuck you. from Shizu as a message. That's also on his to-do list. And then there is the stuff between Milim and Karen. We don't know what that's leading to yet, and what's gonna happen with Falmuth if Yom takes on the throne. So there's a bunch of stuff. What's Veldora gonna do now? Is he just gonna go join the crew? Is he just gonna hang out with Rimuru and that's it, or is there something else that he will do? So yeah, a lot of stuff hanging here. The former student of Shizu Haruka, also still a threat. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see where all of this goes. Initially, I was really hesitant to. I don't know for what reason really, because maybe I was sick of isekai or something. It was like, I'm gonna watch the second season of Slime Time. I remember really liking the first one, but I don't know if I'm gonna watch it. And I watched 1 or 2 episodes, and I was immediately back into that world. It's really good. Just in terms of in the character department, because there's so many sympathetic characters. It's really good in terms of animation. The fights are fantastic. The artwork in general is great. And it has this neat aspect to it with the diplomacy and a lot of the political stuff, aside from all the fighting and the jokes, the comedy and everything. And the neat character development. It has a ginormous cast, so which you could probably already gain from the review, but it's even bigger in the show. So I couldn't name all of the characters that were fun and interesting. But it's really cool. I hope it gets kind of I think it's based on a light novel, I'm pretty sure. Like most isekai are, I guess. But I really hope that story gets a good ending. I don't know if that's actually... I mean, the roadmap is kind of clear. There are at least 2 demon lords to defeat, and Tempest needs to become the most successful nation of them all or something. I guess that's it. And then we're at the end of the show. So at least there's a clear way here. And we've made some headway in that regard in this season. And Rimuru has already fulfilled one of his promises by freeing Veldora. So that's cool. And I wonder where we'll go next. I'm really interested to see where all the different story threads lead for the next season. I enjoyed this one immensely. I thought it was a really fun take on your usual isekai stuff. And yeah, I would recommend this show again. If you haven't watched the first season, you've been just spoiled severely. But I will recommend you checking it out anyway and watch the second 2. They're both very fun. I didn't mention the OP and EDs are always great in this show as well. Funny bit here, the OP in the second season is named Storyteller and the ED is Story Seeker. So that's it's a fun bit. But they're both pretty great, and yeah. Good music, good soundtrack in this show. Again, good artwork, great animation, great characters, cool story. Nice little package, not too long. I think each season has 12 or 13 episodes. So it's a quick watch. And yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. I think both seasons are fun. And I expect this fun to continue in the third season, whenever that is happening. But yeah, looking forward to it.
I don't think you'll have to wait long for the third season, because I think it's slated for July.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
I hadn't heard about that. Well, I'm looking forward to that. Maybe those people who haven't checked the show out yet catch up until then and then watch the third season with me. Because, again, if you gotta watch an isekai anime, you might as well watch a good one because they're far and few between.
True that. Hey, CC, where can you watch Slime Time?
Oh, shit. You got me there, buddy. I forgot to look it up again. I guess it's probably on Crunchyroll. At least it was in Germany. Oh, God, it's everywhere. Yeah, it's on Crunchyroll over here. Might be on Funimation in. Yeah, I think the dub is on Funimation in the US. It's on Netflix in other countries, in some other countries. So yeah, it's on Anime on Demand as well. What the hell? Okay, I don't know. It's on a bunch of different services, like really a lot for different countries. So it should be easy to find for you. And yeah, I would recommend you doing so. That show is a lot of fun. Nothing too mind-blowing or anything. It's a good fantasy story with some neat focus on politics, diplomacy, but also action and a bunch of cool characters. So if you're in the mood for something sometimes light, but also sometimes very dark, I would say give this one a chance and a go, and you'll have a good time.
So, that means up next is Tony Hawk's Downhill Jam.
With a bit of Mario Kart, I guess.
And some JoJo's.
Oh, a lot of JoJo's, actually.
And a little bit of Free, a little tiny bit.
Quite a lot of commonalities with Free, actually.
It's true. So,
I mean, you haven't watched Free.
I watched 50% off.
That's true. You watched. Yeah, right.
Back when internet gaming icon Octopimp was still making that parody. But that was a fun time. It kind of gave me enough context to understand what the show was about. So, what are we talking about? Actually, it's called Sk8 the Infinity, Sk8 in Japanese.
Yes, that's how you properly spell that stuff, especially in the context of the show, kind of.
Yeah, but 8 in a Mobius strip, they're the same thing. Don't worry about it.
Yes, exactly. It works.
So, high school student Reki Kyan is passionate about one thing: skateboarding. When night falls, he heads to S, an illegal underground race inside a mine where skaters compete in highly dangerous situations. After a loss that results in his skateboard being destroyed and his arm being broken, Reki is now incapable of practicing at all. While working, Reki runs into his new classmate, Langa Hasegawa, a half-Canadian and half-Japanese boy with no skateboarding experience whatsoever. Langa is in desperate need of money, and after they both visit S when tasked by Reki's boss, they get into trouble and are forced into a bet that requires Langa to skate in a race. However, the mysterious transfer student holds a trump card that Reki is unaware of, one which might help him win the race in the most unexpected way. So, this is the latest joint by, it's an anime original. It's worked on this one little studio. I don't know, maybe they come up before. They're called Bones.
Rarely.
I don't think we need to go into detail of who they are.
No.
Because Bones has become a very regular name on this podcast. Sk8 was directed at that studio by one Hiroko Utsumi, who worked on other shows such as Free Eternal Summer, Banana Fish, which we talked about at one point, and I think kind of left us both a little cold.
At least towards the end. I liked Banana Fish in the beginning a lot, but then the story became too fractured and a bit too contrived and convenient in certain parts, and some stuff just didn't work out and came together. It was like it was supposed to. At least for my taste. Just felt a bit, I don't know, hastily put together or something like that. It's not all the gears were fitting into each other.
Yeah, and my takeaway was that for a show that took place in the 80s, or was supposed to take place in the 80s, considering when the original manga was written. Didn't really work out.
No, it didn't. But it shows that this is from the same director of Free and Banana Fish. First, because of all the man service, because there's a lot of man service in Sk8, especially every time Joe is around, the fucking beefcake cook. But second, because the structure is very similar to Free. I mean, I've only watched 2 seasons of Free. Maybe might get back to it because apparently now it's getting a final season, and I haven't watched the movie either, so maybe I'll check it out again. But you have some tense sports anime action, and in between it's character development and goofing off with the boys, which is kind of like a good balance. And add to that all the ridiculous over-the-topness that results from all things a certain antagonist is involved in, and you have a splendidly fun show on your hands. Plus, it looks really good, which is expected from the Bones show. So,
I mean, this show has some incredible animation.
Yes.
And when obviously the big conceit of the show is the skateboarding, and there's lots of big, bombastic, and exciting tricks that are constantly happening, and it's a sight to behold when it's in motion.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, if you think that this is maybe a more realistic sports anime thing going on, well, you maybe should. Cute. Yeah, you should maybe take a look at the writer of this show.
Yes, one Ichiro Okochi, who worked on such works as Azumanga Daioh, Guilty Crown, Cabaneri of the Iron Fortress, Princess Principal, Code Geass. Code Geass, one of the co-creators of Code Geass, as a matter of fact.
Don't forget the most important one, Valvrave the Liberator.
I didn't want to mention it, but fuck.
You know, I saw that, you know, that you see that history and you're like, wow, okay, I guess Sk8 is gonna get very dumb at some point, but, you know, in an entertaining way. And the show definitely did not disappoint in that regard, like, at all.
I feel like it got just goofy enough.
Yes. It always took the things that it needed to take seriously, it took seriously, and the stuff that was supposed to be funny and that it had fun with, it did. So it was just it did the right things for the right things, and I thought it was handled exceptionally well.
So I don't know how often we've seen shows with a Canadian character on this podcast.
I can't recall any, actually.
Yes, and it turns out that Langa has never set foot on a skateboard before, and we see that very, very much early on. But he back home in the Great White North,
Boy.
It's okay. We have Canadian friends.
I don't dare make them listen to this impression. So.
Oh no. I'm sure they'd have something to say about it.
Oh god.
I mean, I haven't watched the dub of this show, but apparently from what I hear, the English voice actor threw in some Canadianisms, so I feel like I should go back and rewatch at least a couple episodes to check that out.
Yeah, sounds like a good idea.
But yeah, Langus never skateboarded a day in his life. However, back home with his dad in Canada, he did some snowboarding.
Uh-huh.
And, obviously there's not a one-to-one correlation between the two, but... Not at all. Like, in the beginning, there's the thing where Langa, he takes over for Ricky because he got injured from his battle, his last battle, or the first battle that... what did they call it in the show? Beef? Yes.
With one of the characters, with Shadow, who looks like a Mad Max reject. And
he really does.
Yes, and he's roped into a race due to a mix-up. Langa takes over, and after taking some time to get used to different board feel, he nails it. But after the race, it turns out it was kind of more or less by accident. Turns out skateboarding is completely different from snowboarding after all. And since Langer can continue duct taping his feet to the damn board, which he does, and that's fucking dangerous. Like, he almost gets run over by a truck because he can't jump off the fucking board. He has to relearn, actually, all the basics. Like, because, the board moves completely differently because it's on these fucking wheels.
Yeah, I think they're just called wheels. I don't. Okay. I think at one point Reki puts like chair casters on.
Yeah, he does. He does. He finds an old chair and just puts them on there so that Langer's board can move in any direction, I think. So yeah, that's a pretty neat idea. And yeah, like, Langer quickly becomes very enthusiastic about skateboarding and is also amazed by the fact that you can basically skateboard anywhere. Since the terrain limitations are not as strict as in snowboarding. Skateboarding is infinite, as Ricky's stage, which is basically a title drop right there, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, where can you snowboard? I mean, choose your one biome.
Two, there are some indoor snowboarding or skiing things, but they're usually not that big, and usually you just snowboard on a fucking snowy mountain.
Yes, that's why I say you still need the one element that is in the name.
Yes, but again, one thing that is established very early on, because, Langer has some problems adapting to skateboarding due to the boards just moving into a completely different way than from what he's used to snowboarding. So Reki, because he's actually even better at constructing boards than he's at actually skateboarding, in a way, it's established early. He builds his own boards and everything. He builds Langer's board. And he does certain ways to accommodate for Langer's way of moving on his board and stuff like that, to make it easier for him to transition over from snowboarding to skateboarding. So like you said, he stumbles over an office chair and gets an idea to customize Langer's board with the special wheels and everything. And then he puts also these foot holder thingies on the board in the beginning.
Yeah, he puts like clips on it.
Yeah.
Instead of like, taping your feet to it.
Yeah, exactly. So that he can get out of there if he needs to and is not stuck to the board. So yeah, it's really cool. You immediately are like, okay, that's kind of what Reki is about. And his and Langer's friendship is adorable in this show, as you would expect, because that's kind of the thing that's also in Free. It's like the friendship between these characters, aside from being very clearly coded, very gay, like the whole show is, especially again when it comes to the antagonist.
I mean, honestly, I feel like outside of the antagonist, this show isn't as on the whole as gay as some others.
Not in terms of visuals, like in terms of certain visual cues, but you have Joe and Cherry Blossom who act like an old married couple all the time, right? Mm-hmm. You have Langer and Reki basically at the end kind of almost falling into each other's arms and feeling each other's love for skateboarding and stuff. So it's definitely some heavy pandering in certain regards in this show, but it's never obtrusive or stuff like that.
Yeah, without a doubt. But it's not like overbearing.
No, and definitely not. No. It's definitely in there, but it's also not, like you said, it's not completely overbearing or forcing itself on you, where it's like that is the only thing, and it's constantly man service or constantly in your face or stuff like that. Not that that would be a problem. Free was much more, even more so than Skate in that regard, and JoJo's is also very heavily, very incredibly gay in certain parts.
Yeah, but, and the guy over here who watched just a straight up BL a year or two back and fucking loved it. So
Yeah, which was really good apparently, which I haven't checked out. It was
great.
Yes, so there you go. So
why ain't y'all watched it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I watched it because I'm not into straightforward romances, either straight or gay. So
I still haven't watched the movie, which is on Crunchyroll.com, and I need to get around to that.
Yeah, do that. Interested to hear your impressions. But yeah, I love Ricky's and Langer's friendship. I especially like that scene where they eat stuff from McDonald's while watching skating videos on their phones, and without communicating, verbally kick the board to each other that has the ketchup for the fries on it. Like, it's a great bit of visual storytelling that conveys both their passion for the sport and their quickly growing friendship and trust. So the show is full of that, and I really, really liked it. In general, our two main characters are super endearing, and how they treat each other and everything. It's just fun to watch them together. Ricky has fun, stupid nicknames for everything. His custom boards, Langa and himself. It's a bunch of that. There are cute scenes where Ricky and Langa are constantly chased by teachers, cops, or security guards because they skate at places where that is not allowed. Like, every time these two are together, it's really fun. In general, there's a lot of good humor in this show. I thought there were a bunch of good jokes that made me laugh. Like, there's this great scene with Langa when they get to this vacation home, and Langa has to deal with Japanese toilets, old Japanese toilets. Doesn't want to do that. And I can't understand it because that looks really threatening. Langa also acts a bit like Ricky's mom to protect him from harm when he's overexcited to try one of Joe's moves while still being hurt from his battle against our antagonist and stuff like that. So, it's cute seeing them together. Just like Free, spending time with these characters and the characters hanging out together. Not only Ricky and Langa, but also all the side characters that we get to meet. And Joe the cook, Cherry Blossom, what even is he? Like, is he...
I guess he's supposed to be some sort of AI researcher, programmer.
Yeah, that too. Right, exactly. Yeah, he has this Iron Man board with an AI in it that he talks to. I forgot her name, but yeah. That's
Carla.
Carla, yes, exactly. And then there's Mia, who is like this young prodigy at skateboarding, he only talks in gamer terms in the beginning, because some people slimes and, blah, 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 and like, from Dragon Quest again. And, the old...
Dragon Quest, the national pastime of Japan.
Apparently, yes. These people then all spend time with each other and become friends and stuff like that. Shadow's also part. His story is also kind of interesting because he on the skate ring is like this over-the-top weird Mad Max guy, like I said, and then in the real world he's like working at a flower shop and is totally into his manager and wants to marry her and stuff like that, which kind of ends on a sadder note than I expected, but yeah, it's
you win some, you lose some.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I felt sorry for him though. But yeah, he gets roped in because he's the only one who can drive, kind of, at least. He's the only one who has a car, I don't know. And that's fun. And there's the owner of the shop Ricky and Langa work at, who has a pet fox or something, who doesn't stay relevant at all.
Yeah.
He even appears in the OP, which is fantastic, by the way. Holy shit. It's a really good OP. Also, the ED is fantastic, where you see all of them training and failing at the stunts and tricks and everything, and it's a really cute ED and really fun. It has a really nice uplifting atmosphere. Like, try again, and you will eventually succeed, and your friends will be there to help you and stuff like that. I really like the ED of that. Also, the eye catcher commercial insert skits where they're like super deformed and doing funny tricks and stuff like that. It's also fun. But yeah, that shop owner is in the OP, and he's in the first 1 or 2 episodes, and then he kind of completely disappears from the show after a certain point. I'm like, wait, why was that character in here?
I mean, he kind of appears a couple times after, but not in like any meaningful capacity.
He doesn't really interact with any of the characters aside from Ricky and Langa, maybe, but it's not like he has some worthwhile contribution, I think, if I remember correctly.
Also, can we go back to the fact that his pet is a fennec fox?
Yeah, it's weird.
Why? Why that specifically? It's so strange.
I have no fucking idea. Also, that's a very bitchy fox.
I mean, foxes are...
wild animals, yes.
Yes, they are very fickle animals. I remember seeing a video once upon a time of some guy who had a pet fox that, had been domesticated and was like, this looks like the worst kind of pet to have.
Yes. I mean, they're super cute, but it's, again, one of those pets where it's like, yeah, they're not supposed to be pets.
No.
That fits then with how that creature behaves in the show. But yeah. Again, all these characters interacting with each other, spending time with each other, aside from them, some of them having plot relevance and connection to other characters and stuff like that. It's really cool. There's some side characters that are only hidden here, I feel like, for certain plot reasons and who don't have any relevance whatsoever. Like there's this police investigator lady. We learn nothing about her. She's like only there to investigate the antagonist and stuff like that. And it's like, okay, why? Why she has featured in the fucking OP? It's like, it doesn't.
I mean, she's
really...
not featured prominently, but she's there, and it's like, all right, I guess you're around.
Yes,
you know who's
like.
I mean, you know who's not in the OP, and we see a few times, and she should be. It's Langa's mom.
Yes,
she's such a sweet lady.
She is a sweet lady. I really like that we get some small scenes of her being happy that Langa found a friend and is stepping on a board again, even though it's not a snowboard but a skateboard. Because since his dad died, which is also the reason they moved to Japan, since his mom grew up there, he apparently was pretty depressed and didn't snowboard anymore. Which becomes very important later on when we see some connection to our antagonist and so on. So Ricky kind of pulls him out of that funk by showing him how fun skateboarding can be, and then they become friends. And like I said, Langa finds something to be enthusiastic about, and then reconnect basically eventually. That is this whole arc, kind of, not to give too much away, but reconnecting with the memory of his dad and how much fun he had when he actually, snowboarded with his dad, which he didn't really dare to think about anymore because, it's a painful memory of his dad and so on. So it's really cool. And the show definitely has some emotional high point when it comes to that kind of stuff. It can be an emotional roller coaster at points.
I mean, I wish we had gotten a little bit more about Langa's dad, though.
Absolutely. But, there's just enough in there that it would have been nice to see more, more of his time that he spent with his dad. It's kind of just like the specter hovering over Langa. And you can feel like they don't even explicitly say that he was so completely depressed after his dad died and that he was hating his life or something like that, or, was really sad and everything. But it's clear as day that that's the reason, that Ricky is the reason why he's having fun again and is happy again and stuff like that. And then later, again, in an important race, an important beef with our antagonist, that's some of that stuff also shines through. And yeah, you're right, it would have been nice to see some more with his dad, but I think considering that the show's only one core, I don't know if that would have eaten more time than it needed to.
That's true.
Yeah, you could have taken some hijinks out, like the gang hanging out at that holiday resort or wherever they go, the onsen or stuff like that. But that was a fun side episode with a bunch of nonsense, and that worked really well. So I don't know.
I guess I could even be like OVA or manga fodder, because there are a couple of side manga running right now that, who knows,
Yeah, maybe. I might do something like that. But you're right. Could have been in there. Might have improved things a bit. But again, the show works even without it very well. So it's good stuff. Speaking of emotional turmoil, a character that plays into that very heavily and pretty much into all the other aspects in this show is our antagonist. John, do you want to fill us in on that very special person?
So at S, we meet the Skater Supreme, I guess we could call him. He's this masked skater wearing a matador outfit. I don't have any castanets to clack around, so use your imagination.
Oh, we even... Close enough. We even meet him before he actually introduces himself at S.
That's true.
He is watching the race between Langa and Shadow in his apartment bureau, whatever, without a shirt on, and is conducting the race between those two to Beethoven's Fifth Symphony in front of his TV screens.
God.
He has vampire fangs. And immediately when that happened, I knew this is the kind of dumb I can immediately get behind. So I was in at that point. It was like, oh my god, this is going to be spectacular. And he is voiced by a certain vampiric, let's say a voice actor that has experience with vampires.
Oh. But yes, that's our introduction to one Adam. Mm-hmm. And he is voiced by Takehito Koyasu. So, if you've ever
You're basically racing against Dio in this thing.
Like you said, Tony Hawk's Downhill Jam, starring Dio Brando from the from the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure series.
Yes.
I almost said the meme thing.
And you said, like, well, that's a bit far-fetched. I mean, it can't be that close to JoJo's. You would be surprised. I mean, not if you looked at Okuchi's track record and everything, but Jesus.
Twilight Skater Boy Vampire.
Oh, not only that. I mean, this is giving stuff away a bit, but in the final race, he changes outfits, and it becomes even more ridiculous because his state of mind changes, so his entire appearance, and it's so fucking ridiculous. Even the setup for that race. Oh my god, Adam is fantastic. Adam is like the high point for me of this show in all aspects, because, you know, his whole thing is we don't really know until the very end of the show. Well, we can assume what his deal is. We just learn, hey, he's this weird guy who just talks about love all the time and finding his Eve, and he's trying to do, yeah.
Because of course Adam would look for his Eve. God damn it.
Of course. And of course his Eve turns out to be Langa. And he tries to find the most capable skater that can excite him and bring new spark into his life and everything. And we learned that Joe and Cherry Blossom hang out with him. They were kind of a team, but that he was much more joyful in his past life there. And then something happened to him, and we get filled in a bit on that as well. He seems to be from a rich family. He seems to be kind of doing politics and stuff like that. And he is he's living with his aunts, who are all assholes, and putting huge expectations on him. And his father was also an asshole, and forbid him to skateboard and stuff like that, which was the only thing that brought him joy, which he learned from a servant of his, who becomes also kind of important in the later part of the show, and his relationship to Adam and everything. And yeah, he apparently started as, because he's the guy who organized that shit, who's basically the host of that, and the best skater there is, to, I guess, work through all his problems, or in a way which... It doesn't come across like that, but it gets clear after a while that he has some issues, and that is the thing why he's doing that. The beautiful thing is, he does it in the most flamboyant, over-the-top, ludicrous, comic booky, insane anime villain way ever. It's ridiculous. Like, his moveset, the way he talks, the way he moves, the fucking races he actually does. It's so much joy to watch him do his shit.
I mean, he literally starts dancing on his board to flamenco music. And then his signature move is him somehow defying the laws of physics and riding his skateboard uphill to execute the love hug.
You know, there's this quote from Blade: some motherfuckers always try to skate uphill.
Yes.
Adam not only tries it, but he actually achieves it. So that tells you what kind of badass he is.
I just saw something about Adam's name, by the way. So, you know, obviously in hiragana, or in katakana, excuse me, it's written Adamu, Adam. Mm-hmm. But that's apparently not how the name is actually written. Mm-hmm. It's written I, as in love, Da, as in Daku from hug, and Mu from Yume for dream. His name is Love Hug Dream. His name is Love Hug Dream.
It's perfect. That's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. Fantastic. I'm in love with this.
This show's great, guys.
Thanks for telling me this. This has enriched my day. Anyway, Jesus. Yeah, Adam is fantastic. The first battle he has with Langa, they literally dance on the board.
Yes.
And it's amazing. And at some point, I think Langa leaves him behind, and then Adam just takes shit seriously, and then just takes sharp turns and just holds on to parts of the audience just to take those super sharp turns. That made me laugh out so loud, where he just drags them behind himself out of the corner, and they're just screaming, "Oh my god, help!" It's fucking great. And all this fucking stupid super moves, where the love hug shit, and the stuff where he just fucking gets off his board. Is that even legal? Runs takes his board in his hands and just flat out smashes his skateboard into Cherry Blossom's face.
God, that scene was like, oh, you hate to see it.
Yes, it's really mean, but also super funny in a way, because it's so ridiculous. You don't expect shit like that. It's fantastic. Every time Adam is on screen, it's especially when he's in the skater gear and it's this weird matador dude. It's fantastic. I love Adam to death, and I love how much fun Koyasu has with him.
There was one moment where he went full Koyasu, and it was like, yep, this
there
is
it is.
it.
That
That's
is
the one. Like, I mean, you get breadcrumbed along at the beginning because you hear his voice, you're like, oh yeah, of course, and then he reached that one moment and say, we've reached it.
Mm-hmm. Here we are. We've waited for this, and yeah, it's fantastic. And yeah, it's eventually there's, of course, as it's supposed to be, there's this huge tournament. The beginning of that is already super wild. There's actual hand-to-hand combat, or rather hand-to-board combat, and you know all the other
it has
characters.
A lot of rules.
Yes, and it gets as crazy as I wanted it to get. Like Cherry's skateboard can transform. Everyone is doing special move. Like, that's my stupid jam. Like, Joe is doing this weird missile-style skateboarding shit.
He fucking launches off of a wall at full force and leaves his feet imprints in a rock wall.
And just fucking skate boosts the steel beam out of the way. Like...
Yeah, oh god.
Get out of my way, steel beam. Like, that reminded me of fucking Skate or Die on the Game Boy. So, that's a callback. Anyway, yeah, that was super fun. And like I said, Cherry vs. Adam is great as well. And there's so much cool battles at the end of the show. Yeah, that's basically what's happening at the tail end of the show. It's just this giant combat. Adam is kind of infatuated with Langa because he's like, oh, he's this super talent and he is surpassing everyone. He's quickly becoming a best skater and I want to skate him and I want to make him mine and so on. Like I said, that's again where the game part comes into play a lot. Like Adam's interaction with Langa is like really... somewhat predatory also at some point, you know, that's also a problem maybe, but it's still in good fun. It's never too gross. It's mostly hilarious. And you know, the way he looks at Langa in certain ways, and then Langa at some point becomes a literal angel, but it's just there's so much crazy shit happening.
This show's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot of fun mostly.
But
so
yes.
There you go. But also, you know, like we said before, as hilarious as the show is and as ridiculous as it is and as much fun as it has, there are some parts in it that are taken very seriously, mostly in terms of the trauma some of the characters have suffered and also what happens in certain relationships and how people cope with that. Like, at some point, Ricky has to learn to deal with the realization that Langa, due to his talent, superior athletic abilities, drive, and recklessness, is quickly outpacing him in skateboarding and leaving him behind.
I feel that because, you know, video game tangent. we like to play games. I think we, in our circle of friends, we all enjoy fighting games to certain degrees. I make no claim to be good at them, but I enjoy watching high-level play, and I can sort of see what's going on and understand. You know, you can understand when a big play is exciting and great. I can't execute on any of that. No. But I can look at it and recognize that, hey, this shit's crazy. So I kind of feel like Reki has that moment inside his head, too.
Absolutely. And, you know, a lot of the show, his arc is about coming to realization that is not a bad thing necessarily. That he can still have fun. You know, a lot of the moral of the story is skateboarding, like a lot of things, is more fun with friends, just in general, right? And so that's also kind of his arc, not only his, but also Langa and a lot of other people. But also, after a while, and that's interesting, you just get this moment of conflict where, you know, while he is afraid of such mad genius skaters like Adam, Langa admires Adam and wants to race and beat him no matter the cost because it's a challenge of his skills and everything. And then you get this growing distance between Ricky and Langa, and you have this like real strain on their friendship at some point, and that has to be overcome somehow by both of them. And it takes some time, and you know, some of them actually thinking about themselves and talking to other friends and family and so on. Ricky's family is great, by the way. That's also cool that is inherent. That was also in Free. Especially the second season was, I think, if I remember correctly, pretty dark in that regard. When we see, I think, the background story of Ren, it was the guy with the shark teeth. I think featured that more heavily. I don't know which of the 2 seasons that I watched it was, but where it's actually like, no, we get into some actually characters having some actual baggage and some hold up. And of course, Langa has the stuff with his dad and everything, and that also comes into play. And Adam has the stuff where with the expectations of his family and him not being allowed to have fun in his life and only has to do what his parents tell him and shit like that. And all of that, while not super deep, is still like the emotional core of all that hits right. And it's understandable and relatable and stuff like that. And it's well executed. And it doesn't drag. And all of that reaches a very satisfying conclusion by the end of the show, in my opinion. I don't know how you felt about it, John.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it hit a pretty strong emotional peak. Obviously, Ricky and Langa, are reaching or having their own big realizations about themselves and each other. That was the big, I feel like, emotional linchpin of the show at the end. Sort of left me with some questions about the nature of some of Adam's backstory. Like we get bits of it, but again, I think it could have been a little bit more. But possible OVAs of manga. I don't know. It feels like there's still a possibility to fill in a few of the blanks.
Yes. I would say the final episode is a great bookend to the story, but leaves room open for more episode and some, to fill us in on some more of the background and maybe, do something more with the characters. We really don't need any of it. The series is good as it is, as like the small, compact, standalone thing. But, you can extend on some of that stuff more. But also I like that some of the stuff is maybe left a bit ambiguous. Yeah. And it ends on a lot of, all the characters having fun together and this funny short fucking final thing that Adam does and everything. It's just ridiculous. But I liked it. I liked where the show ended up. Yes, you could have done some more with certain things, but like I said, the most important stuff is in there. Just enough for you to understand the characters and to know what their deal is. And some of the stuff you have to fill in yourself, where it's like, okay, how did that exactly happen? But then you're like, yeah, I guess it's that way. The show doesn't spell it out for you, but it kind of doesn't need to, in my opinion.
That's true.
So it's all right. Like I said, it's a quick watch. It's incredibly fun, and I liked it a lot. Apparently, which is only evident at one point in the show, to me anyway, that show, like another show I'm going to review later this season, had a lot of production problems, surprisingly. There's a great article on Sakuga blog, which I'm going to link in the show notes, in the show description, whatever, wherever you want to watch this, or if you're going to go to our site, animebrainfreeze.com, you can read it there, which goes into those 2 shows, this and Wonder Egg Priority, what troubled them, what didn't work, where shit went wrong this season when it came to production, because at some point the show has a recap episode. Yeah. It's only 12 episodes long, I think, and one of that is...
It was 13, including the recap, I believe.
Yes. Maybe it was, supposed to be only 12 initially, and then they had to put a recap episode just to be like, hey, we need the extra time, so this is going to be 13 episodes instead of 12, so we need to finish the other stuff. And the quality stays incredibly consistent. I didn't see any shortcuts or stuff like that, and the final episode looks fantastic. The final duel between Adam and Langa is fucking amazing. It looks ridiculous. The soundtrack is flawless. It's just, production-wise, the whole show, but especially that final part is amazing. So that didn't really jump out at me, but the recap episode is where like, okay, that doesn't feel like it should be in a 12 or 13 episode show. So you're like, okay.
That's true. We haven't talked about them before, but this is the second show that Bones has worked together with Studio No Border. And I feel like it's worth highlighting them a little bit. They did the skateboard designs for the show, and they did the world design for Carol and Tuesday before this.
Ah, right.
And Studio No Border is a smaller studio founded by one Tomas Romain, who previously worked a lot with Shoji Kawamori at Satellite on stuff like Basquash, Symphogear, Macross Delta. Did some work on Space Dandy before forming No Border, which is cool. So yeah, definitely got to flex their brains on coming up with goofy skateboard designs for this show, and I really, really, I'm not a skateboarder, but I really, really appreciate everything about that.
Absolutely, and it shows. Just in general, it shows that this was a passion project. I don't know if by the director or by the writer, or if it was a joint thing, but it feels like, and I think the article by Sakuga blog mirrors that, where it's like, hey, the production people who were calling the shots assembled this team of specialists, and like these people with a passion for certain things who knew exactly what they were doing in their respective fields to create like this tight passion package. And that was also part of the problem, I guess, because contrary to some other bigger studios handling their production, this team was kind of rather small, apparently. There's not much rotation in the production staff, apparently. If you look at the credits from episode to episode, like a lot of the people responsible for the show stayed consistently on each episode, if I'm not mistaken. And that became a problem when work piled up, and then also the pandemic, and, you know... Keeping it short, quoting from the article, like the team was way too small for the amount of work remaining, which is causing Bones to smash the panic button harder than they've had to do in a very long time. So that's why that recap episode happened. And it's surprising that the show didn't fall apart completely by the end, which has happened to other shows. So yeah, I'm glad that didn't happen. But also, it again shows that there is so much overproducing going on in the anime landscape currently, and it's just all the capacities are stretched so fucking thin, and just this one thing needs to go wrong, and the anime industry just can't deal with fucking surprise scenarios. Like, just don't have the capacity for it.
Yeah, I mean, there's another studio who we'll talk about next time that definitely has this problem in spades. But, you know, I think there was an article that Kadokawa was like committing to produce like 40 new shows over the next like year. And it's like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Like, is it great that we as weeaboo anime fans are spoiled for choice every season? Yeah, but you know, that comes at a cost.
Exactly, it comes at a cost, and it's not like we're watching all the shows. I mean, we watch a lot of shows in the sneak peek, like probably most than other people check out each season. And we're not finishing all of them. We're not watching all of them consistently. We just pick our favorites, and then we're like, hey, let's
not
talk
finishing,
about these.
not reviewing all of them, because we kind of made that cut back too.
So if you just kept it to half the number of shows and just gave us the really good shit and not just your generic bullshit that nobody is watching anyway, then you could maybe focus your efforts and your power on the projects that make sense and that you haven't seen before like that. And you could have actually good working condition for the fucking animators and pay them appropriately. Maybe also no more crunch. And that is a big problem right now.
I don't think crunch is ever going away in any industry.
Yeah, I fear so.
Because, I mean, you always have... As someone who works in retail, the company that I works at had a massive wave of layoffs. Corporate will always find a way to do more with less people.
Oh, absolutely. I've been in those shoes for the past year. It's like, hey, we're expanding, but also we're going to let go 3 people in your department. Like, how does that fit together?
Cool.
How the hell? Who made that calculation? Where can I find him? And how can I kill him or her?
There was this one post I saw on Reddit that was like, hey, you can stay and work, but we have less people. Wow, everyone's quitting. That's weird. Anyway.
Yeah, strange. Who could have seen that coming?
So,
but yeah.
Like, you gotta do something about overwork. Gotta be done.
Absolutely. It always comes down to companies trying to save money at the most, let's say, easiest in the easiest way possible, and the easiest way is always on the personal side of things, on the employee side of things. So that's a problem, and I I know things are not going well in the anime industry in that regard in general. A lot of people overworking and just in general, just too much work to do here because, they're just doing too many fucking shows. And I love watching a lot of anime, but I wouldn't mind if there were a lot fewer shows each season. I would be able to deal with that. Hey, if we had only 2 shows to review each season, it's like, hey, okay, that's how it is now. That's fine. We're only going to do 1 show each season. That's totally okay for me. That's fine.
Yeah,
we talk too much about anyway.
I would be absolutely fine with that. That's one of the reasons why I've been picking up less shows. That's one of the reasons why I want to review less shows. Like, I enjoy doing this with you, but sometimes it gets to a point where it's like it gets hard to talk about things unless they're really unique. Like this show,
exactly,
Sk8 is something different, and it's a passion
absolutely.
project, and it's great. But everything else just sort of.
Yeah, there's some stuff that blends together, and you just need to look harder to find that special, that thing that makes that show special. And I mean, that's what we do. That's our hobby, right? That's why we do this podcast. I was about to say that's our job, but it's not. We're not full-time anime reviewers.
Where's our sponsorship money? Sponsor us, Funimation, Crunchyroll, Bookwalker.
Exactly.
Who else? Who else is on the list?
Yes, it's not our job, but it could be.
I'll fucking shill for Raid Shadow Legends.
Well, I'll let you do that then, but. Anyway,
hey,
but yeah,
Crunchyroll. I put plenty of time into Princess Connect. I'll fucking shill for that.
That's actually true. I mean, you should do that. Just write them. I mean,
like JK. Maybe I won't shill for Raid, but I mean, they have plenty of money to throw around anyway.
Apparently, yes. But also, I'm glad to report that we're getting a steady increase of listeners. Apparently, which yeah, I'm glad. Apparently, people, at least some people, seem to like what we're putting out on a regular basis. As standard as it might be in terms of format. But I'm glad that that is the case. So I'm happy that we can talk about this stuff in a way that makes people enjoy this. So I'm really glad about that. We don't need to do it for money. But if any of the bigger companies are interested to sponsor us in any way, sure, I would be there. I don't know if we actually are allowed to do it. Are we allowed to do it in terms of the music and stuff we use that is supposed to be not used for commercial? I don't fucking know. I would have to research that. But
I mean, fucking Pat and Wooly put licensed music at the end of every Castle Super Beast, so
Okay, well, then there's that.
And I don't think Jake Kaufman would come at us too hard using, I don't think there's any restrictions on using the Double Dragon Neon music that he's openly stated or Way Forward has.
I looked at, that's specifically why I chose that soundtrack. I looked at the site of Majestic or whoever is responsible for the rights holder or on Jake's side, and it says like allowed to freely distribute and use for non-commercial use, whatever. So it's like, okay, non-commercial means probably don't sell it. I don't know if it means don't get ad revenue for videos or things that where you use that music. I have no fucking idea.
I mean, if worst comes to worst, we could commission someone to make a theme song. So give us that sponsorship.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, don't count on it, Sean. Don't count on it. But hey, well, still at some point we might create a Patreon or something. I don't know, but we're not there yet. And this, again, this is a part-time thing, and we're just doing this as a hobby. And it's fun. And we're going to keep doing it as long as we have the energy and there's enough unique, quote unquote, or, legacy anime to go around. And ending on the unique thing, I think I absolutely agree with you. Sk8 is a very unique show, even though it has a lot of similarities to Free. But I loved it to death. I think it has fantastic set of characters. It's from beginning to end looks amazing. Like I said, the production problems, aside from the recap episode, are never to be recognized in any way possible. They don't shine through. It looks fantastic. It sounds fantastic. The passion for this project oozes out of every seam. And yeah, it's just a really fun show. And, the villain is fucking fantastic. Again, I love Adam to death. And
He's pretty great.
Yes. And yeah, please, if you have the time. If skateboarding is not your thing, maybe this show is also not your thing. I don't know. But if you like fun things, if you like anime, if you like good animation, if you like entertaining characters, sympathetic characters, if you like crazy villains, if you like cartoony action and crazy super movements, shit like that, all the good stuff that anime has to offer, put into a neat little 13 episode package. Come on, just fucking watch Sk8 the Infinity. It is a really good time. John, where can people watch it?
You can watch it on Funimation in the US and internationally on Anime Lab and Wakanim, and then this is a show that's all over the place because Aniplex just puts their stuff everywhere, but those are just a couple places.
Which is a good thing.
It's very true, except Aniplex pulled the plug on Crunchyroll having one of my favorite shows of all time, so I'm a little upset about that, but that's a discussion.
Wait, which show was that?
The Idolmaster.
Oh, okay. That's a problem.
Yeah, but, it is what it is. Licenses expire. Give me some fucking Blu-rays, please. But
we'll see about that.
But, yeah, the show's great. It's all over the damn place, so you could watch it pretty easily. And, yeah, just remember that fun is infinite.
And that is a wrap on the 111th episode of Anime Brain Freeze. All the music in our show is from the Double Dragon Neon soundtrack by the amazing Jake Kaufman. Please go to vrt.bandcamp.com and check out his awesome work. Our show is available on most of the popular podcast services, but it's always worth visiting animebrainfreeze.com for our review index and more. Leave us comments and questions on YouTube, follow us on Twitter at AnyBrainFreeze, or send an email to animebrainfreeze@gmail.com. We would love to read your feedback. Thanks for tuning in, we hope you had a good time, and please join us again on our next episode. Macht's gut!
Take care, everybody. Next time on Anime Brain Freeze.
Begun the Stone War has!
And the conclusion of a Titanic tale, part 1?